Hi, everyone, and thanks a lot for joining us. I'm DeMarco Morgan. A lot to talk about. President Trump says it's true Russia meddled in the 2016 presidential election. Mr. Trump sat down with CBS Evening News anchor Jeff Glor Wednesday, and when asked if he had hold Vladimir Putin accountable, the president told Glor, quote, "I would, because he's in charge of the country." Now, his comments come on the heels of another White House backtrack. Earlier Wednesday, the president appeared to say no when a reporter asked if he believed Russia was an ongoing threat. But White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders told reporters he wasn't responding to that question. Well, it's the second walk back on his comments in 2 days. On Monday, the president appeared at a joint press conference with Russian President Vladimir Putin and said he believed him, not U.S. intelligence, that Russia did not meddle in the 2016 election. Jeff Glor asked the president about his relationship with Putin. Here's their conversation.
You say you agree with U.S. intelligence that Russia meddled in the election in 2016.
Yeah, and I've said that before, Jeff. I have said that numerous times before. And I would say that that is true, yeah.
But you haven't condemned Putin specifically. Do you hold him personally responsible?
Well, I would, because he's in charge of the country, just like I consider myself to be responsible for things that happen in this country. So certainly, as the leader of a country, you would have to hold him responsible, yes.
What'd you say to him?
Very strong on the fact that we can't have meddling, we can't have any of that. Now, look, we're also living in a grown-up world. Will a strong statement, President Obama supposedly made a strong statement. Nobody heard it. What they did hear is the statement he made to Putin's very close friend. And that statement was not acceptable. Didn't get very much play, relatively speaking, but that statement was not acceptable. But I let him know we can't have this. We're not going to have it. And that's the way it's going to be.
But he denies it. So if you believe U.S. intelligence agencies, is Putin lying to you?
I don't want to get into whether or not he's lying. I can only say that I do have confidence in our intelligence agencies as currently constituted. I think that Dan Coats is excellent. I think that Gina is excellent. I think we have excellent people in the agencies. And when they tell me something, it means a lot.
Coats says the threat is ongoing. Do you agree with that?
Well, I'd accept him. I mean, he's an expert. This is what he does. He's been doing a very good job. I have tremendous faith in Dan Coats. And if he says that, I would accept that. I will tell you, though, it better not be. It better not be.
Have you talked to Coats since you got back?
Yeah, I have, sure.
What do you say?
Just talk generally speaking. Yeah, he agrees with the statement you made. And I go along with him. He's a he's a great guy. He's a great patriot. He loves his country, and he's only going to say what he truly believes. And the information that's given to him is that.
Do you think any intelligence agencies, U.S. intelligence agencies, are out to get you?
Well, certainly in the past, it's been terrible. You look at Brennan, you look at Clapper, you look at Hayden, you look at Comey, you look at McCabe, you look at Strzok and his lover, Lisa Page. You look at other people in the FBI that have been fired, that are no longer there. Certainly, I can't have any confidence in the past, but I can have a lot of confidence in the present and the future, because it's getting to be now where we're putting our people in. But in the past, no, I have no confidence in a guy like Brennan. I think he's a total lowlife. I have no confidence in Clapper. You know, Clapper wrote me a beautiful letter when I first went to office, and it was really nice. And then all of a sudden, he's gone haywire because they got to him and they probably got him to say things that maybe he doesn't even mean. But no, I certainly don't have confidence in past people. You look at what's happened. Take a look at all of the shenanigans that have gone on. Very hard to have confidence in that group.
On Saturday, you told us your doctrine is strength and achieving peace through strength.
Right.
After Helsinki, Lindsey Graham said you showed weakness.
Well, Lindsey Graham,
said it was the most serious mistake of your presidency.
I totally disagree. I think I did great at the news conference. I think it was a strong news conference. You have people that said you should have gone up to him, you should have walked up and started screaming in his face. We're living in the real world, okay?
Who gives you the best advice when you come back and You read all these stories, and you said you don't know what the fuss is all about. Who do you talk to?
I will tell you, I don't know what the fuss is all about. I think we did extremely well, and I think the press makes up the fuss. Look, it's fake news, and people understand. I think the press largely makes up a lot of the fuss about a lot of things, and I'm not talking about one of it. I'm talking about everything. It's crazy. You do something that's positive and they try and make it as negative as possible. Not all. And I have to say this, some of the most honorable people I know, some great people are reporters, journalists, etc. But the level of dishonesty in your profession is extremely high.
But the press covered the substance and the wording of that press conference accurately.
I don't care what they covered. They didn't cover my meeting. The important thing, frankly, was the meeting that lasted for 2.5 hours, or almost 2.5 hours. And in that meeting, we discussed many, many things that were very, very positive for both countries.
What tangibly emerged from that conversation? What do you feel you achieved?
I think we achieved a lot. Things emerged out that were very important. Nuclear proliferation between Russia and the United States. That's 90% of the nuclear weapons. Protection of Israel. He feels good about that. I feel good about that, very good about that. That was a big factor. We talked about North Korea. He said he will help. He agrees with what I'm doing. He thinks I'm doing a great job with respect to North Korea. He said he would help. I think he will. Let's see what happens.
How do you
they have a lot of border. They have 25 miles of border right on North Korea. So having that assurance, I think, means quite a bit. There were many other things we talked about, but I thought it was it was about 2.5 hours, and I thought it was a very good meeting, very good.
How do you think he can help specifically on North Korea?
Well, for one thing, at the border, we don't want anything going in. We hope we have a deal. I think we have a deal. There's no rush, to be honest with you. There are no missiles going off. We have our hostages back. No testing. There's no nuclear testing. So we've come a long way in a short period of time. So there is no rush. But what there is something we would like to see, that the denuclearization of North Korea. He feels strongly about it. I feel strongly about it. And that's good. I was not sure how he was going to react to that, but we had a very good discussion and a long discussion on that.
I do want to ask you, sir, you said you'll sit with the special counsel before. Has anything changed in the past 6 months to change your mind about whether you're more or less likely to?
There's no collusion. I didn't deal with Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia with respect to my race. I won that race rather easily, and I can tell you that I think, frankly, 2020, I think it's going to be even better than we did in 16.
But would you say, are you more likely to sit for an interview now?
My lawyers are working on that. I've always wanted to do an interview because, look, there's been no collusion. There's been no talk of Russia. There's been no phone call. There's been nothing. And I call it a witch hunt. That's exactly what it is. It's a vicious witch hunt. And you know what? It's very bad for our country. Very, very bad for our country.
All right, the president hasn't changed his tone. Joining me now is CBS News Chief White House Correspondent Major Garrett and CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes. Good to see you both.
Great to be with you.
Good to be with you.
All right, Major, we'll start with you. The president told Jeff he does believe in U.S. intelligence officials when they say that Russia meddled in the election. But earlier Wednesday, he appeared to tell reporters he does not believe Russia is still a threat. You asked Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders about that. Let's listen.
Earlier, Cecilia asked the president, is Russia still targeting the U.S.? He said no. Is that what the president actually believes? Did he understand the question? And is his position that no, Russia is not doing anything to interfere or meddle in the 2018 election?
I had a chance to speak with the president after those comments, and the president said thank you very much and was saying no to answering questions. The president and his administration are working very hard to make sure that Russia is unable to meddle in our elections, as they have done in the past and as we have stated.
So he does believe it's going on?
Well, since there's currently not an election today, not specifically, but we certainly believe that we are taking steps to make sure they can't do it again. Unlike previous administrations, this president is actually taking bold action and reform to make sure it doesn't happen again. But he does believe that they would target certainly U.S. elections.
Is there any
again.
distance between the president and the DNI coach who said the red lights are blinking? on this topic? Do they
No,
completely
as I
agree?
just said, that's why we're taking steps to ensure that these things don't happen again. We wouldn't actually spend as much time and effort as we are if we didn't believe that they were still looking at us.
All right, Major, this is the second sort of walk back we've heard the White House
Right.
make on the president's comments since Monday. Do we know where the president stands right now?
Well, in his interview with Jeff, the president said it better not happen, it shouldn't happen. He holds Vladimir Putin responsible for what happened in 2016. He's moving in the direction that his advisors since Helsinki have been urging him to move. Accept the fact that Russia meddled, say so, hold Putin responsible. Now, he could have done that without being prompted by a question. He still isn't far enough where he'll do it by himself, spontaneously. And today, Sarah Sanders' explanation doesn't really match the transcript, because Cecilia Vega of ABC, the pool reporter in today, asked the president not once but twice, and he said no both times. Now, it's at least theoretically possible that he didn't hear either question, but he's got a pretty sharp ear, and when he responds, he usually knows what he's talking about or why he's responding. So I think this is another instance where the White House had to go back, and Sarah Sanders went to talk to the president because she knew something went wrong, and had to be ready at that briefing to offer an alternative explanation. And at least by saying the administration is taking steps, and she outlined a few, it indicates this administration is now willing to talk about this as an ongoing concern. But when the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, says the red lights are blinking, he's telling the country that whatever remedial steps this administration has taken so far are insufficient to the task.
All right, Nancy, several lawmakers of both parties condemned the president's failure to confront Vladimir Putin on the issue Monday. Where do they stand now, and do they feel he has clarified his remarks?
Well, there are some Republicans who said to us today, DeMarco, look, this president has tried to clean up this mistake. Clearly, what happened in Helsinki wasn't his finest hour. He's owning up to it, so let's all move on. Or as Ted Cruz put it, let's relax. Democrats, as you might imagine, aren't so ready to relax. They say that what the president is saying now is different from what he said the past 2.5 years, and they expect that he'll revert to his typical talking points once the pressure is off. They think that this walk back is incomplete. They think it's disingenuous. And frankly, there are a number of Republicans who worry that they might be right. They look, for example, at that interview that Mr. Trump did with Jeff. And he was asked a very simple question. Do you believe that Mr. Putin was lying on Monday when he said that the Russians did not meddle in the U.S. elections? This is an answer that would be very easy for every single member of Congress, almost all of them at least, to answer. They would say, yes, of course, Vladimir Putin was lying. What did the president say? Well, I don't want to go into it one way or the other, whether Putin was lying. And so that is the kind of thing that really raises eyebrows for members of Congress from the left and the right who wonder why this president doesn't see those flashing red lights, as his own advisors have put it, why he seems to want this warm friendship with Vladimir Putin that even his own party believes just isn't possible.
It is indeed raising a lot of eyebrows there. Major, I want to go back to you. The president is also reportedly considering allowing Russian investigators to question former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, and a U.S. investor. Why is Russia interested in the two men?
Well, because it would give them access to interesting people in America that they want to question because they have some sense that they've done something untoward in Russia or under Russian law might be subject to interrogation. Now, the administration, through Sarah Sanders at the podium today, said it's just an idea that they threw out. Nothing has been committed to, and they're reviewing it. Trying to step back from what the president said in Helsinki was, it's an incredible offer and an interesting idea. I guarantee you within the intelligence community, it's not regarded as either. An incredible offer, well, possibly incredible in the sense that it can't possibly be given any credibility, and not interesting. The U.S. intelligence does not want to put itself and the Russians on a morally equivalent plane. Yeah, sure, you talk to our people, we'll talk to your people. We'll exchange information. No, you don't exchange information with a malevolent government that tried to use cyber activity to interfere with and disrupt a presidential election in the United States. So the administration could, if it wanted to, say absolutely not, this is a ludicrous idea. It's not there yet, but it feels like they're trying to find a way to get in that direction.
So, Nancy, what are you hearing on Capitol Hill about the efforts for the American interpreter in the meeting with Trump and Putin to come and testify?
So there are some Democrats who are pushing for this interpreter to go before Congress and testify about what was discussed in that meeting. And interestingly, the Republican chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Corker of Tennessee, said he'll look into it. He finds that intriguing. You have other Republicans, however, who say, look, this woman is not a policy official. She was simply there in the room to translate. She wasn't taking notes on what was discussed, and it's inappropriate to interview her. When asked today, the White House press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, didn't rule it out. As Major knows, he was there. But she did say that it was up to the State Department, and frankly, many Republicans think that it is unlikely the State Department will say yes. The problem is there aren't that many other choices. There really isn't anyone else from the United States besides the president who was in that meeting, and members of Congress are clamoring for answers. The president said more in his interview with Jeff than most members of Congress have been told about what took place in that meeting. He said that they discussed nuclear proliferation. They discussed Israel. He said that Vladimir Putin made some promises about Russian help with the U.S. trying to denuclearize North Korea. Well, that's something that members of Congress would like to know more about, but they simply don't have those details. They're going to press the Secretary of State when he testifies before Congress next week, but it's unclear right now how much he has been told about the nuts and bolts of what was discussed and what was promised in that 2-hour meeting in Helsinki.
All right, the final question goes to Major. Mr. Trump repeated in his interview with Jeff that he wants to get along with Russia and China, but he also says he's been tougher on Russia than any other president. How does he want to go and get along with the two countries if he keeps calling himself tough on them?
Well, the president's point of view on this is that you can get along, and you can get along better if you've demonstrated some measure of toughness. And that's certainly what he believes when it comes to Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation. It's also what he believes with Xi Jinping of China, confronting China on theft of intellectual property, a very real and well-established issue, and on trade imbalances. The president believes if you demonstrate strength and do things that are confrontational, you get your adversary's attention and can maybe work things out. That's his point of view. That's his belief. And when it comes to Russia, the president is not wrong when he says he has done things tougher than the previous administration. I don't think he's accurate when he says no one has been tougher on Russia. We have an entire Cold War history of many American presidents confronting Russia. But to the point that he has taken steps that the Obama administration didn't, he's 100% correct. He's provided lethal weapons to Ukraine. He's provided for the export of liquefied natural gas to Europe. Those are two things considered by the Obama administration, rejected. Both are not things that Moscow is in favor of, quite to the contrary. And on just those two examples, plus the expulsion of more than 60 Russian diplomats in the United States, closing 2 consulates, keeping all of the sanctions imposed by the Obama administration over election meddling, and in some cases adding on to that, are pieces of evidence that back up the president's contention that he has not been a patsy when it comes to Russia, that he has taken actions. But it's this other dynamic about his unwillingness in public to say negative things about Vladimir Putin or to confront him when given the opportunity on this issue of election meddling that has contributed to this perception that he has been, if not weak, not as strong as he could be.
All right, my friends and colleagues, Major Garrett and Nancy Cordes, terrific reporting, I should say. Thank you both. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Good to see you too, DeMarco.
And you can see part 2 of Jeff's interview with the president Thursday on CBS This Morning and on CBS Evening News on Thursday. The president's thoughts about the 2020 election and which Democrat he'd like to run against.